Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Whisper Zone. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Story 1. They say the woods have a way of keeping secrets, but the bridge, that damn bridge at Bone Creek, it doesn't keep anything. It whispers. At night, it screams. My name's Clyde Hollis. Been a park ranger along the Appalachian Trail for nearly 20 years. I've seen it all. Bears tearing through camps, panicked hikers lost for days, even the occasional body when winter doesn't forgive a bad decision. But nothing ever got to me like what happened in the fall of 1988. It started like any other patrol. The trees were just starting to turn, fiery reds and burnt oranges spreading like slow fire over the ridges. The sky was clear, air sharp and clean like you could drink it. I was walking the stretch near Bone Creek, boots crunching over fallen leaves, my old mutt Boone trailing behind me. He was a good dog, half hound, half who knows what. Loyal, quiet, always walked a few paces behind, never needed a leash. The bridge came into view just before sunset. It's an old wooden thing, swaying a little even when there's no wind. Built back in the 40s, never got replaced because barely anyone comes out this far. It just hangs over the creek, surrounded by nothing but woods and rock. That day, the creek babbled like always, soft and slow. The forest hummed, birds calling to each other, a woodpecker hammering somewhere deep, the wind rustling high in the pines. Peaceful, familiar, until Boone stopped. I felt the leash go tight and turned to see him standing stiff, ears up, tail low, not barking, not growling, just staring, straight at the bridge. That's when I heard it. Not loud, not clear, just strange. A whistling. Real soft at first, like someone dragging a stick across an old fence. But there was no fence, just trees, creek, and wind. Still, I brushed it off. Wind plays tricks out here, echoes bounce around the hills. Boone was old. Maybe he caught a whiff of a coyote or a bobcat. I tugged the leash. "Come on, boy," I said, "ain't nothing there." But he wouldn't budge. Then I looked closer. Right near the edge of the bridge, just past the first plank, there were bones. Small ones, neatly stacked, like someone had taken their time with it, like a little tower of finger bones and bird skulls. My stomach turned. That wasn't nature. That was intentional. Still, I told myself it was probably just some backwoods kid playing sick games. Maybe some local loner with too much free time. The sun dipped lower, painting the forest gold, and a chill rolled in. Boone whined. A low, almost human sound. And that's when I realized I couldn't hear the creek anymore. The water had stopped. Not frozen, not blocked, just gone quiet. Dead quiet. Like the woods were holding their breath. And that whistling? It started. Again. Closer this time. It didn't sound like a person anymore, that whistling. It was wrong. It had a sharp, hollow sound to it, like someone breathing through broken ribs. Not a tune, not something playful. More like pain. Mocking pain. Boone let out another low whine and backed away. His tail tucked so far under he looked like a different dog. I'd never seen him act like that. He faced bears before and didn't flinch, but now he turned and bolted. Full sprint, leash slipping from my hand before I could grab him. "Boone!" I shouted, but my voice came out strange, muffled, like something thick was hanging in the air. I didn't chase him. I should have, but I didn't. My eyes were glued to the bridge, that pile of bones. It wasn't the only one. To the left of the trail, behind a cluster of dead trees, there were more. Dozens of stacks. Some tall, some small, some still red with rot. They were arranged in spirals, lines, and weird shapes that made no sense, but made me sick just looking at them. There was something about them. Too neat, too clean. Like whoever did this wanted someone to find them. Like it was a message or a warning. And above it all, the whistling continued. It echoed through the trees, but never faded like normal sound. No matter where I turned, it felt like it was right behind me, following, digging into my ears. Then I saw the deer. It was hanging from a tree across the bridge, stripped clean, skin peeled back like paper, legs stretched wide and nailed into the bark in a cross shape, its head drooped, antlers broken, eyes missing. But it wasn't fresh, it didn't smell. No flies, no blood dripping, just dry, preserved, like it had been there for weeks or months. But I knew it hadn't been there the day before. I patrolled this area every other day. I would have seen it. I felt a lump in my throat. My hands started shaking, just a little. Not from fear, not yet, but something deeper, something instinctual, something in my brain whispering, "You're not supposed to be here, turn around, leave." But I didn't. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was anger. Or maybe it was the same voice that always got me into trouble. The one that made me walk through jungles in Vietnam when I knew better. The one that let me watch my friends die because I thought I could handle it. I stepped onto the bridge, and the whistling stopped, just gone. The silence that followed was worse. I could hear my own breathing, heavy and shallow. The creak of the wood under my boots, the soft flap of the deer's skinned hide in the breeze. Then something moved beneath. The bridge, it was fast, just a flash, but I saw it. A long black limb, too long, with fingers or claws. It crawled on all fours, but its back arched, high like a wolf stretching. I stepped back. The bridge groaned. Then I heard it. Not the whistle, not a growl. It was my name, Clyde, soft, gentle. A whisper so close it felt like it came from behind my ear. Clyde. I spun around. Nothing. Then again from under the bridge this time, like something hiding in the creek bed. Clyde. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the first bone pile behind me. I wanted to run. God knows I should have. But my legs didn't listen. Then I saw its eyes. 2 yellow dots glowing just under the planks. Watching, unblinking, like twin coins buried in shadow. And just before it slipped back into the dark, it smiled. I stood frozen, staring at that spot under the bridge. Those glowing yellow eyes were gone now, vanished like smoke. But the image burned into my mind, how they didn't blink, how they smiled. I took a step back. My boot landed on a dry stick, snapping it. Suddenly the forest felt wrong. The wind, the birds, the river, they were all gone again. Not quiet, not calm, just empty. Like the world had taken a breath and never let it go. My radio crackled on my shoulder, but it didn't work. Just static. I didn't even bother calling in. This far out, the signal was hit or miss. Besides, what would I say? Hey, I saw a giant thing with yellow eyes smile at me under a bridge. Send backup? No one would believe me. Hell, I didn't believe me. I started walking back. Not fast, not running, just steady steps down the trail, eyes scanning the trees. I didn't want to make a sound. Every broken twig under my foot felt too loud, like it echoed through the whole forest. Then the fog rolled in. Not slow, not natural. 1 second the trees were clear, golden with the sunset, and the next, everything was gray, thick, cold, like walking into someone's breath on a winter night. I held my breath, looking around, heart thumping in my ears. Shapes moved. Inside the fog, I couldn't tell what they were. Tree branches, shadows. Then I heard that whistling again. Only this time, it wasn't coming from behind me. It was ahead, then to my left, then to my right. It was circling me, and something about. It was different now. It wasn't just creepy, it was angry. Faster, sharper, like something getting impatient. That's when I felt it, not saw it. Felt it, breathing, right behind me, a low rattling exhale like wind through broken glass. I turned my head slowly. There, it was, in the fog. Standing tall, hunched slightly forward like it was too long for its own body. It had fur, dark and matted, and long arms that almost touched the ground. Its head looked like a wolf's, but stretched, twisted, like someone tried to build a dog's face and messed up halfway. The eyes glowed again. Not bright, just enough to see. Then it tilted its head sideways like it was studying me, and it whistled, but this time it came from inside its chest, like bones rubbing together deep inside. I could feel it in my ribs. My nose started bleeding. Just a thin drip, but I knew it wasn't normal. I backed away, trying not to blink. It didn't move, just kept whistling. Then, just as fast as it came, it dropped into the fog. Gone. I stood there for a second, breathing hard, not sure if I was going to puke or pass out. That thing, whatever it was, it wanted me to know it was real. It wasn't hiding anymore. And worse, it was playing, like a wolf circling a deer, and I was the deer. I didn't sleep that night. I made it back to the ranger cabin by midnight, jittery, covered in cold sweat, hands shaking. Boone still wasn't there. I whistled for him, called his name for hours, but he didn't come. I tried convincing myself it was all in my head. The fog, the bones, the eyes. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was finally cracking. But in the morning, I found Boone's leash hanging on the cabin door. I didn't put it there, and that's when I knew I wasn't crazy. Something out there wanted me to know it was watching. It was sending a message. So I made a decision. I grabbed raw meat from the emergency rations, thick red cuts, elk meat left over from a poacher confiscation last month. I packed it in a cooler, grabbed my hatchet, and headed back out. I wasn't running anymore. I was going back to the bridge. The trail was quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no bugs, no breeze. Just the sound of my boots and the cooler swinging at my Dionysu. When I reached Bone Creek, the fog was already waiting for me. It sat low over the trees, swirling like breath on a window. The bridge looked the same. Old, creaky, weather-worn. But something about it felt different now. Heavier. Like the air around it knew what was about to happen. I walked to the middle of the bridge and opened the cooler. The raw meat glistened in the gray light. I dumped it right in the center. Let the smell drift into the trees. I didn't say anything, didn't make a sound. I just waited. Minutes passed. Then I heard it. Whistling. Low. Slow. Coming from both sides of the bridge at once. I gripped the hatchet tighter. Then the fog shifted and I saw it. It stepped out from the trees like it had been waiting its whole life for this moment. Tall, hunched, black fur soaked from the mist, muscles rippling beneath its skin like snakes under cloth. Its arms were too long, legs bent wrong, and its head. God, its head. Those yellow eyes burned like tiny lanterns in the fog. Its mouth opened slowly, revealing long teeth slick with drool. It didn't charge. It stalked. Slow, careful steps, like it was savoring the moment. It stepped onto the bridge. The wood groaned under its weight. 1 foot, then another. Closer, and closer. I stepped back, just enough to reach the ropes tied to the support beams. My hand found the knife I had tucked into my belt. It was old, dull, but sharp enough to cut rope just a little closer. The dogmen reached the meat and crouched, sniffed it, looked up at me and smiled. That same awful, twisted smile it gave me the night before. "Come on," I whispered. "Just a little more." It took another step toward me, and I slashed the rope. One side of the bridge dropped hard, the beams snapping. With a loud crack, the creature roared, a horrible rattling sound that shook the trees and tumbled sideways into the river. But it didn't fall alone. The rope caught my wrist as it snapped, and I went down with it. I hit the water like a stone, the cold stealing my breath. The current pulled me under fast, smashing me into rocks and debris. I caught glimpses of the creature thrashing nearby, claws swinging wildly, those yellow eyes still locked on me. Then, everything went black. I don't remember getting out of the water. 1 second, everything was cold and black. The next, I was coughing up river water on the muddy bank. My hands were torn, my jacket was ripped. The knife was gone. My shoulder felt dislocated, but I was alive, and the bridge was gone. The ropes, the planks, everything had collapsed into the creek. Just broken wood and torn cables floating downstream. I looked around, dazed. No sign of the dog man, no tracks, no sound, just fog and the quiet rush of water. It was over, or at least I wanted to believe it was. I limped back to the cabin that morning, dragging one leg and clutching my ribs. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I just wrote my report. Bridge collapsed due to age. Area unsafe. Trail closed until further notice. I took a week off after that. Still no sign of Boone. I looked. I called. I left food and blankets along the trail. But deep down, I knew he was gone. A few weeks later, the park rebuilt the bridge. New wood, new rails, stronger ropes. They made it safe for hikers again. But people don't cross it anymore. Not at night. Because now, the locals say the new bridge howls only when it rains. Only when the fog rolls in. A long, sharp whistle that rises through the trees, cold and clear, like bones dragged across steel. And sometimes, just before it starts, you'll hear a soft voice calling out from the mist. A man's voice whispering one name, Clyde. Story 2. I still remember the sound of my boots on those wooden steps. Each step creaked like it didn't want me there. Like the tower itself was warning me. It was sunset. One of those quiet, golden evenings where the sky looks like it's been set on fire, but in a soft, peaceful way. The whole forest glowed. Trees stretched for miles, and the breeze smelled like pine and dust. It should have felt like heaven. But the moment I reached the top, I saw them. Clawed footprints. Big ones. Too big to be a bear. 5 toes, but long and twisted like fingers. They were pressed deep into the wood, right up to the cabin door. No prints leading away. Just there. Waiting. I paused. A long pause. I wasn't new to the woods. After I left the fire department in San Diego, I took the first job that would let me disappear. Firewatch duty seemed perfect. No people. No noise. No reminders. Just trees, towers, and time to forget. But those prints, they felt wrong. Not just scary. Wrong. I tried to shake it off. Told myself it could be a prank. Maybe a ranger before me had a weird sense of humor. Still, I reached for the melted toy truck in my jacket pocket. I always carried it. Couldn't leave it behind. Couldn't let myself forget the boy from the fire. He was trapped in his room. I was almost there, crawling through the smoke. I could hear him crying. Then the ceiling came down. All I found in the rubble was his toy, melted and bent, but still in one piece. That was 2 years ago. The screams haven't stopped in my head since. Anyway, back to the tower. I pushed open the cabin door. Everything inside was normal. Small bunk, desk, radio. Logs from past rangers, fire maps on the wall. All just as I expected, except the air. It was cold. Too cold for a California summer evening. I had to rub my arms for warmth. I stepped inside, dropped my bag, and set the toy truck on the windowsill. That was my little ritual. Every place I stayed, I gave the truck a spot near a window. Like maybe he'd see the trees, maybe he'd feel safe. The sun dipped lower, painting the hills orange. I climbed the short ladder to the lookout deck on top of the cabin. Pulled out my binoculars. Scanned the forest. Just trees. Quiet and still. No smoke, no fire, no signs of life. That's when I noticed the silence. No birds, no wind. Just me, and the sound of my own breathing. Suddenly the radio crackled. I jumped. It was just static. Then a short buzz. Normal, I guessed, maybe interference from nearby towers. I turned it down and went back inside. Locked the door. Ate a cold dinner out of a can. Wrote my first log entry. July 3rd, 1961. Tower. 9. Strange prints at the door. Might be animal. We'll check again in the morning. Nothing else to report. Then I lay in the bunk. The mattress was stiff, but I didn't care. I was tired. As I turned to face the window, I caught something in the glass. A shape, just for a second. Tall. Thin. Antlers. But when I blinked, it was gone. Just trees swaying in the wind. Except, the trees weren't moving. There was no wind. and for the first time in a long time, I felt it again. That same feeling I had outside that burning house in San Diego, that something was about to go terribly wrong. That first night I couldn't sleep. It wasn't the bed, it was the sound. A faint crackling like dry wood burning. I sat up straight, heart pounding. For a second, I thought a fire had broken out nearby. I rushed to the window, looked out in every direction. No smoke, no flames, nothing. But the crackling didn't stop. It was inside the cabin. I checked the corners under the bed, even opened the small cabinet where extra flares were stored. Nothing was burning. Everything looked normal. But the sound was still. There, low and steady, like embers glowing in a fireplace that didn't exist. And then, just as suddenly, it was gone. The silence that followed felt even heavier. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, listening to my own breathing and wondering if I was just tired, or if something was really off here. By 2 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and stepped outside onto the lookout deck. The air was cold and still. The forest stretched out below me, dark and endless. That's when I heard it. A scream, faint, far off, somewhere deep in the trees. I froze. It wasn't the scream of someone hurt or angry. It was a child's voice, crying out just one sentence. Let me out. That exact phrase, over and over, soft but clear. Let me out. Let me out. My stomach turned cold. I knew that voice. It sounded like him, the boy from the fire. No, that couldn't be. That boy was gone, dead and buried. This was just my mind playing tricks again. I had heard his cries in my head for years. Maybe the woods were messing with me, but something deep inside me knew. This was different. I stayed out there for a long time, eyes scanning the trees, heart beating fast, but nothing moved. Nothing called out again. When the sky finally began to lighten with the first signs of morning, I went back inside and sat by the window. The melted toy truck sat there, catching a bit of sunlight. It looked almost normal in the soft glow. I picked it up and held it tight. Back in San Diego, I used to visit the boy's mother. She gave me the truck, said, "Maybe it'll help you forgive yourself." It didn't, nothing did. After breakfast, I walked the perimeter around the tower. I wanted to find those prints again, maybe get a better look in daylight, but they were gone, wiped clean. Like nothing had ever been there, no scratch marks, no dirt, not even a smudge on the steps. I stood there for a long time, staring at the wood. That's when I noticed something else. No birds, no chirps, no rustling in the leaves, not even bugs. Just this weird, empty stillness, like the whole forest had gone quiet to listen for something, or hide from it. When I got back inside, I turned on the radio to check in with the other towers. Just static. I tried a few more times throughout the day, but got nothing. Even the signal felt dead. That night, as the sun went down, I watched the forest again through the binoculars. Still no smoke, still no fire. But something moved just past the tree line. Tall, thin, barely more than a shadow. It didn't walk, it glided. And I swear, just before it disappeared between the trees, I saw a glow coming from inside its chest. Like fire trapped in bone. It left no trail, no light, no sound, just that same awful stillness. And when I finally laid back down, the whisper came again. Same voice, same phrase. Let me out. This time it was right outside the door. I didn't open the door that night. I just lay there in bed, frozen, staring at the ceiling, holding the melted toy truck to my chest like a lifeline. The voice outside whispered again, "Let me out." Soft, almost gentle. Too gentle, like it knew who I was. I don't know how long I stayed like that, but eventually, morning light crept through the window, and the voice stopped. No knock, no scratching. Just silence, like nothing had happened. But something had changed. The pow. Air inside the cabin felt thick, like breathing through damp cloth. I sat up and noticed a smell. Rotten, sweet, like fruit left out too long. My stomach turned. I checked my food supplies, opened the cooler. Everything had spoiled. even the sealed, cans. Bloated, leaking. The bread was covered in green fuzz. The water had a yellow tint. It made no sense. I had packed everything fresh, sealed tight, stored cool, but now it looked like it had been sitting there for weeks. I threw it all out, stepped outside to get some air. Still no birds, no squirrels, no insects. Nothing. The forest was dead quiet again. I walked around the tower, looking for prints, signs of animals, anything. Still nothing. It felt like the woods were holding their breath, waiting. When I stepped back inside, I almost slipped. There was sap on the floor, dark, sticky, thick. A small puddle right under the window. I looked up. No trees nearby, no holes in the ceiling. Nothing dripping from above, just a pool of sap, seeping from the wooden floorboards. I wiped it up, but the smell stuck to my hands, sweet and sick. I couldn't stop gagging. By midday, I was feeling dizzy, hungry, dehydrated, but I didn't trust anything in the cabin. I sipped only a little water from my emergency pack, just enough to keep me steady. The radio was still dead. I tried again, and again. Moved around the cabin, hoping for a better signal. Nothing but faint static, like distant wind in a tunnel. That's when I saw it again. Out the window, same place, just beyond the trees. It wasn't hiding anymore. The shape stood taller than any man. Bones, sharp and thin, like its skin had been. Stretched too tight. Antlers twisted out of its skull, black against the gray sky. And in the center of its chest, that same red-orange glow, like a tiny fire burning inside it. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching. I raised my binoculars. Its eyes locked onto mine. They were black, hollow, but they saw me. I swear they... My hand started shaking so bad I dropped the binoculars. When I looked back up, it was gone. Not walked away. Not vanished into the trees. Just gone. No sound. No movement. Nothing. I locked every latch in the cabin, closed the shutters, kept the flare gun nearby. The toy truck was still on the windowsill. Somehow, that little thing brought more comfort than the weapon did. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the chair watching the door, but it never knocked. Didn't speak, didn't scream. It just let me wait. And somewhere deep in the night I realized, it didn't want to hurt me. Not yet. It wanted to wear me down. I stayed up all night again. Couldn't risk closing my eyes. Not after what I saw. Not after what I smelled. That rotting, sticky sweetness still hung in the air like it had seeped into the walls. I didn't eat. I barely drank. Every time I thought about food, my stomach flipped. I wasn't sure if it was fear or if something inside the tower had truly gone bad. Maybe both. By morning, my hands were shaking. My lips were dry. I tried to focus, wrote in the logbook just to keep my mind busy. July. Cabin feels wrong. Food spoiled. Floorboards leaking sap again. Forest silent. Something watching. I underlined that last part 3 times. I kept glancing at the toy truck on the windowsill. It looked different, like it hadn't melted at all. Smooth edges. Almost new, but I knew that couldn't be. I'd held that burnt piece of plastic in my hands for 2 years. I picked it up. It was warm. That's when I heard his voice again. But this time, it wasn't outside. It was right behind me. Joey, help me. Please. I spun around so fast I knocked over the chair. My heart slammed in my chest. The room was empty, but the voice had been clear, like someone standing just a foot away. It wasn't the soft whisper from the woods. It was louder now, closer, more real. I backed up into a corner and held the flare gun close. Then it spoke again, this time from the radio. Let me out, same child's voice, crackling through the static like it was calling from somewhere deep inside. I grabbed the radio, yanked the cord from the wall, threw it across the room. Silence. Dead silence. Not even static anymore. Just the sound of my own. Ragged breathing. I sat on the floor for what felt like hours. I didn't know what to think anymore. My brain felt foggy. My eyes burned. When the sun started to go down again, I got up and started working on a plan. If that thing was getting closer, if it was coming inside, I needed to be ready. I dragged out the flares from the supply box, found a small can of fuel and a box of matches in the emergency drawer. I didn't know if fire would hurt it, but I had nothing else. I drew a ring around the tower's base using fuel. Not much, just enough to light quickly if I needed it. I placed flares at every window loaded that the sun was nearly gone. Sky turning orange, then purple, then black. I stood by the window staring into the dark woods, waiting. The ring of fuel was ready. My flare gun was loaded, a box of matches in my pocket, flares placed on the windowsills just in case. The air was cold again, too cold for July. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I don't know if it was fear or if I was just too weak from not eating. Maybe both. Then it came. At first I thought it was the wind again, but no. It was footsteps, heavy, slow, one step at a time, coming up the stairs. No whisper this time, no scream. Just that steady sound of weight climbing each wooden step. Creak, creak, creak. Raised the flare gun, aimed it at the door. My heart felt like it would explode. Then, silence. No more steps. I waited and waited. Then something hit the door. Not hard, just a single soft knock, like a child asking to be let in. Then the voice. Joey, it's me. That voice. His voice. The boy from the fire. You didn't save me. My throat tightened. My legs nearly gave out. I pressed my back against the far wall, gun shaking in my hands. It's burning again, Joey. You smell it? And I did. The air filled with the scent of smoke and meat. I started coughing, my eyes stung, but there was no fire. I ran to the window and saw it. The creature. It wasn't on the stairs anymore. It was in the woods, just beyond the flare ring. Watching, tall, bones like sharp wires, antlers curling upward. Its chest glowing like burning coal. Its head tilted slowly, like it was studying me. I ran down the stairs and lit the match. The ring of fuel ignited, sending up a wall of flame around the tower. The creature didn't move. The fire danced in its black eyes, but it didn't back away. It stepped forward through the flames, but the fire didn't touch it, didn't burn its skin. It walked through like it wasn't even there. I screamed and scrambled back up the stairs, slamming the hatch shut behind me, locked it, shoved the desk over it. Then I heard the wood creak again. It was climbing up the outside of the tower now. Its claws scraped the walls. Then it was on the roof. I aimed the flare gun at the ceiling, ready to shoot if it broke through. Then the trapdoor burst open. Long, bony arms reached in. One grabbed my leg. I fired the flare straight into its face. A burst of red light lit the room. The creature let out this horrible sound, like a scream made of fire and wind, and fell backward. But it wasn't done. I saw its head rise again in the flames outside. There was no more hiding. No more running. I grabbed the last flare, held the melted toy truck in my other hand, and I did the only thing I could think of. I jumped straight through the window, right into the flames. The creature followed, and then darkness. 3 days later, a rescue team reached Firewatch Cabin 9. No one had heard from Joey Marquez since the 4th of July. His radio went silent. No flare signals, no morning logins, just nothing. The team expected the worst, maybe a fall, maybe a wild animal. But when they arrived, the tower looked untouched. The fire ring around the base was scorched black, like it had been lit. But no fire had spread. Not a single tree burned. The grass was green right up to the charred circle. It made no sense. The cabin door was wide open. Inside, everything was still. No blood, no body, no sign of struggle, just absence. The floor had a strange mark near the window, like something heavy had landed there, hard. The shutters on one window were broken, hanging by one hinge, swaying gently in the breeze. But that wasn't the strangest thing. It was what they found on the desk. A single object. A toy truck, melted, darkened, bent slightly at the edges. but it was clean, not dusty, not dirty, like someone had just placed it there with care. The rescue team searched the woods for days. Helicopters scanned the hills. Dogs picked up no scent, no prints, no blood trail, no signs of Joey. He had vanished without a trace. Weeks passed. The official report listed it as a missing person case. Presumed dead, cause unknown. But the other rangers stopped volunteering for Cabin 9. Some refused to go near it. The tower still stands today, deep in the Sierra Nevada, empty and silent. And every year, on the 4th of July, some say they hear a voice. Soft, carried on the wind. Let me out. But if you ever go near Cabin 9, don't answer and don't bring fire. Because whatever Joey faced that night, it's still waiting. Story 3. I still remember the sound. It wasn't a howl, it wasn't a scream. It was something in between, like a whistle through broken teeth, dragging across your bones. I didn't believe the stories at first. I thought they were just old trail myths, campfire garbage to keep kids from wandering too far. But I was wrong, and now he's gone. My name's Jake Miller. I'm with the Park Service in Roane County, Tennessee. 2 years ago, one of our rangers went missing up near Bone Creek Bridge, a place most folks don't even know exists. His name was Clyde Hollis. Older guy, quiet, kept to himself. Used to walk that stretch of the Appalachian Trail like it was his own backyard. The last time we heard from him was October 17th, 1988. He radioed in around 9 p.m. Said something about strange noises in the woods. Sounded like whistling. Said his dog wouldn't stop shaking, that was it. We searched for 5 days straight. Nothing. No body. No footprints. Just his flask, bent like someone had crushed it in their hand. We rebuilt the bridge later that year, and folks started walking the trail again. But every now and then, people still say they hear that same whistle, low and sharp, coming from under the new bridge. Some say it's the wind. I don't think it is. You ever walk so deep into the woods that the sound of your own breath starts to feel too loud? That's what Bone Creek was like. Just trees, wind, and the soft trickle of the water below. Most days I liked the quiet. I needed it. After what I saw in Nam, silence was the only thing that didn't come with ghosts. Name's Clyde Hollis. I'm 49. Been with the Forest Service for 17 years now. I walk the Appalachian stretch through Roane County, Tennessee. People call it the easy path, but they've never taken the Bone Creek turnoff. Not many do. I live in a small ranger cabin not far from the bridge. Nothing fancy, just a bed, stove, radio, and shelves full of old field guides and coffee. Tins. My dog, Buck, keeps me company. He's part retriever, part something wild, but he listens better than most people I know. Every morning's the same. I wake up at 5. Heat up some leftover coffee, feed Buck, and check the trail logs. If I'm feeling steady, I'll walk the whole loop, about 9 miles. Make sure no one's fallen, littered, or gotten lost. Some days I skip the bridge. I can't explain why. Just a gut feeling. I still have dreams about the jungle. About the ambush. About my team. I don't tell anyone. What good would it do? I just keep walking, keep checking, keep my head down. A few weeks back, I started hearing things. Not voices, not at first. More like whistles. Real faint. At night, just after the sun dipped behind the ridge, I'd hear something sharp drift through the trees. I'd tell myself it was the wind catching the bridge cables, or a bird I didn't recognize. But it didn't feel right. Then the calls came in. 2 hikers said they heard coyotes that sounded human. One woman swore something followed her to her car, said it had glowing eyes and walked on 2 legs. I laughed it off, probably just nerves. People get jumpy out here when the mist rolls in. But then Buck started acting strange. He wouldn't cross the bridge anymore. Ears flat, tail low. He'd growl at nothing, stare off into the trees like he was waiting for something to step out. That dog's seen bears, snakes, even a cougar once. He's never flinched before. I didn't say anything to the station. I didn't want to get pulled. I figured I'd watch the area myself for a few days, see if I could catch whatever was spooking. Folks I didn't know yet. I didn't know what I was walking into. It started with bones, small ones at first, rabbit, squirrel maybe. Picked clean and stacked in little piles like someone had taken the time to arrange them. I found the first set near the waterline under the bridge. At first I figured a fox or raccoon had done it, some animal caching. It's food. But the bones were too clean. No blood, no teeth marks. Just dry, white, and snapped in perfect halves. The next morning I found a deer. It was nailed to a tree. I still remember just standing there, not sure what I was even looking at. Its skin had been peeled off, clean like a glove. No mess, no meat. Just muscle and red. The legs were stretched out like a cross. Something about it felt wrong, not just sick, but purposeful. I don't care how messed up a hunter is, no one does that. Buck refused to go near it. His hackles were up, his teeth showing. He made this low, growling sound I'd never heard from him before. Not even when we'd cornered a bear last summer. I reported the deer to the station but left out the details. Just said I found a carcass, in bad shape. Told him I'd take care of it. They didn't press, but that night I barely slept. There was that sound again, a whistle, same as before, but now it was louder. It didn't come from the wind this time. It came from under the bridge. A long, slow shriek that sounded like metal being dragged across more metal. It rattled my teeth. I grabbed my flashlight and went outside. The air was cold, but I was sweating. Buck stayed back, whining at the door. I called out into the trees just in case it was a person messing around. Hello? You lost? Nothing. I scanned the woods. My beam caught something, a flicker between the trees, 2 yellow eyes, not bright like a flashlight, dim but glowing. They blinked, sideways, not like a person, not like any animal I know. Then they were gone. The next morning I found boot prints by the bridge, but they weren't mine. Too narrow, too long. And here's the part that chilled me. The heels were at the front, like someone or something had walked backwards, perfectly straight across the mud. I should have reported it then. I should have left, but I didn't, because I've seen monsters before. Just not the kind with fur. I waited until just before sunset. Not because I was trying to be brave. I just needed to know what I was dealing with. Whatever was out there wasn't just scaring hikers anymore. It was messing with me. And I don't scare easy. I packed light. Just a flashlight, my old army. Knife, some beef jerky, and my radio. Left Buck behind, even though he whined like I'd kicked him. But I couldn't risk him bolting into the woods. Whatever this thing was, I didn't think it would go easy on a dog. I started down the trail toward the bridge. The forest was still. No wind, no birds. Even the river sounded softer than usual, like it was holding its breath. As I got closer, I saw the bones again, more this time, dozens. All laid out in lines now, like arrows pointing toward the bridge. Some were small, birds, rabbits, but others were bigger. I swear one looked like it came from a deer's leg, cracked clean down the middle. I followed them. The air changed the moment I stepped onto the bridge. You know that heavy, dead feeling. You get before a thunderstorm? Like something big is about to drop from the sky? That's what it felt like. Except there were no clouds. Just orange light slipping through the trees and that quiet, heavy air pressing down on me. Then I heard the whistle again. This time it came from behind me. I spun around, light shaking in my hand. Nothing. Just woods. Then again, to my left, I turned. Still nothing. The sound wasn't moving. I was. Whatever it was circling me. I took a few steps forward and stopped. Something was in the water. At first, I thought it was a log. Then it moved. Slow, like it was crawling. I saw long fingers break the surface. Too thin to be human. Too long. The skin was dark and wet and pulled tight over bones. It slipped back under before I could shine the light. Fully on it, I backed off the bridge, didn't run. Just walked slow. Calm. Like if I moved too fast, it would chase me. I made it back to the trail and turned around one last time. That's when I saw them. Eyes. In the trees. Dozens of them. All low to the ground at first, then slowly rising. Like whatever they belonged to was standing up. I didn't sleep that night. I kept my radio close and my light on, even after the batteries started to die. The sound of the whistle came back around 2 a.m., but this time it lasted longer, and it was closer. The next morning I made a plan. I didn't tell anyone, not the station, not even Buck. I knew they'd just pull me from duty or say I was tired, stressed. Maybe I was, but I also knew what I'd seen. Those eyes, that thing in the water, the bones. Whatever was out there, it wanted something, and I had a feeling it would come back, so I set a trap. I spent the day dragging fresh meat from the cold locker at the station, 2 pounds of raw deer cuts we'd found in a poacher's bag last week. I left them in a tin pan right in the middle of Bone Creek Bridge, tied it down so it wouldn't blow off. Then I cut part of the ropes under the bridge, enough so one heavy step would snap the line. Not too much, just enough. I sat in the woods, nearby with Buck, who finally followed me but stayed low, shaking in the ferns. I kept him close. I had my knife, my flashlight, and my radio turned off. The sun dropped behind the ridge. The sky turned a deep purple. The woods felt empty. Then I heard it. That whistle, closer than ever. It sounded like metal being scraped across bone, long and sharp and cold. It echoed off the trees. Buck pressed against my leg, teeth bared but silent. Then I saw something step onto the bridge. Not a man, not an animal. It was both, tall, maybe 7 feet, covered in dark fur, matted and wet-looking. Its arms were too long, its legs bent wrong, like a dog walking upright. And its eyes, those yellow, sideways blinking, eyes locked straight onto mine through the trees. It didn't sniff the meat. It didn't eat. It knew I was watching, then it shrieked, loud. So loud I dropped the flashlight. Blood rushed to my head and I felt something warm drip from my nose. Buck yelped, and I grabbed him before he could run. I stood up, stepped out of the brush. "Come on then," I said out loud. My voice cracked, but I meant it. I was done running. The thing turned its head, slow and strange, like it didn't have a neck. Then it stepped toward me, off the bridge. I didn't wait. I whistled sharp like I used to in the army and ran. I shouted, I waved my arms, and it followed. Not fast, just steady, like it knew I'd tire before it did. I stepped back onto the Uor bridge and waited till it was halfway across. Then I kicked out the post. Rope snapped, wood cracked. The middle of the bridge gave way, and we both fell. I don't remember hitting the water, just the cold, and that sound, like whistling underwater, like something was singing to my bones. They never found my body, only my flask. Crushed flat like something heavy had stepped on it. It was lying downstream, half buried in the mud. Buck made it back to the cabin on his own, scratched up, limping, but alive. He wouldn't eat for 2 days. Just stared at the door, waiting. The station said I must have slipped, said maybe I got dizzy, fell off the bridge during patrol. Accidental death, they wrote in the file. But that's not what happened. Jake, he was the one who found my journal. I'd left it tucked under my mattress, just in case. I wrote down everything, the bones, the eyes, the whistle, the thing in the water. He read it. I know he did, but he didn't turn it in. Can't blame him. Who'd believe it? They built a new bridge that spring. Steel cables, fresh boards, even some fancy lights installed along the railing. Hikers came, back, families, campers. The forest felt normal again, but the sound didn't stop. Some nights folks say the bridge whistles, soft and sharp like wind dragging across teeth. Animals still won't go near it. A local kid said he saw something in the water one morning. Said it stood up, then sank like it was never there, and Buck, he never went back. Lived the rest of his life sleeping by my old bed, watching the door, ears always up like he was listening for something only he could hear. I don't know what that thing was. I don't know where it came from. But I do know this. It's still out. There, waiting. And if you ever hear whistling while you're crossing a bridge deep in the woods, don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep walking. Story 4. They never teach you what to do when you find boots standing straight up in the dirt, with no feet in them, not tipped over, not tossed aside, just standing. Like the man wearing them had simply vanished into thin air. That was the moment I knew something in Black Hollow wasn't right. I'm Delia Voss. third-generation park ranger. My granddad walked these woods with a compass and a rifle. My mom did it with a map and a radio. I came with GPS and a clipboard. But no amount of gear prepares you for something that doesn't play by nature's rules. It was the summer of '76, when the loggers went missing. 3 of them, all men. No arguments, no bad weather, just gone. Their trucks were still parked by the trailhead, radios untouched, not a single call for help. I was sent out alone to check their last known location, Black Hollow. Locals always said weird things about that place. Too quiet, they'd mutter. Things echo wrong out there. I never believed them. I've hiked that forest 100 times, it's just trees. Tall, swaying, whispering trees, or so I thought. The day I went in, it was hot. Cicadas were screaming from every branch. The sun filtered through the maples in patches that danced on the dirt trail. It felt peaceful, calm, but the deeper I walked, the quieter it got. Birds stopped singing. No wind, just silence thick enough to chew. I kept walking. Miles passed. I found their first camp near a dry creek. Tent still up, fire pit cold. Tools lined up like they were ready to start work. But no one was there. Not a soul. No signs of a struggle, just nothing. That's when I saw the boots. Big mud-stained work boots. Standing at the edge of a clearing, laces loose. No footprints around them, none going toward or away. I stood frozen, heart thumping in my ears. I called out, "Ricky, Tom, Manny." Nothing. I checked the boots. Dry inside. Warm from the sun. Like someone had just taken them off. That's when the air changed. I don't know how to explain it, but suddenly, the woods felt like they were watching. Like the trees were holding their breath, waiting. I couldn't hear the cicadas anymore. Just the sound of my own heartbeat. I backed away slowly. Took a deep breath. Told myself it was just nerves. I'm a ranger. I've seen bears, snakes, even cougars, but this was different. It wasn't fear of something I saw, it was fear of what I couldn't. Still, I stayed. I had a job to do. People don't just disappear without a trace, so I set up camp a few 100 feet from the boots, laid out my sleeping bag, lit a small fire, and made a log of everything I'd seen. No animals, no people, no signs of movement. And yet, something felt off. That night, before bed, I took out the little cassette I always carry. My son's voice sang through the static. He was 7 when we recorded it, singing his favorite lullaby. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. He lived with his dad after the divorce. I didn't blame him for not wanting to talk, but hearing his voice always helped me sleep. I pressed play, curled up in my bag. The trees creaked above me like old bones shifting. I shut my eyes, and Black Hollow watched me sleep. I woke up cold, and not where I'd gone to sleep. My fire was gone, my bag was damp, and when I sat up I saw I wasn't in the same place I'd camped. Somehow, I was deeper in the woods. The clearing with the boots? Nowhere in sight. At first I thought maybe I'd sleepwalked, but I've never done that in my life. And who sleepwalks half a mile with their gear? My bag, my flashlight, even my boots were all neatly placed next to me, like someone else had, carried them here and tucked me in. My heart was racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. I packed up and followed my trail back the way I thought I came. But the trail was gone. The trees were different, taller, thicker. I know those woods like the back of my hand, but everything felt off, like the forest had shifted while I slept. Around noon, I found something that made my stomach turn. A pocket knife, open, blade rusted, lying in the middle of a stump like someone had been whittling and just vanished mid-cut. The weird part, it had a name carved into the handle. T. Ruiz, one of the missing loggers. I picked it up and whispered, "Tom." Only the wind answered. That night I didn't sleep. I built a new fire, closer to a rock face where nothing could sneak up. Behind me, I stayed sitting up, flashlight in my lap, hand resting on my radio. I kept clicking the mic, hoping someone might be listening. Ranger Voss reporting from Sector 9. Any units nearby? Static. Still no sign of missing persons. Possible signs of confusion or disorientation, requesting backup. More static. I gave up after an hour, just me and the firelight. Then, I saw them. Two small blue lights, far off between the trees. I leaned forward. They weren't lights. They were eyes. Round, bright, glowing like tiny moons, staring right at me. I froze. They didn't blink, didn't move, just hovered there about 5 feet off the ground. I thought maybe it was an animal, but no animal I've seen has glowing blue eyes that don't reflect, don't shift, don't do anything except watch. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it toward them. They disappeared, just like that. Gone. I stood up, walked out a few feet. Nothing. No rustling, no movement, just still trees and soft dirt. I didn't sleep at all after that. By morning, my bones ached. I was exhausted. My brain felt like it was wrapped in cotton. I told myself I'd head back to the trailhead. Call it in, request a team. This wasn't normal anymore. But when I turned on my GPS, the screen glitched. It flickered, jumped coordinates, then shut off completely. I tried my compass. The needle spun in slow circles like it was lost. Something in those woods didn't want me to leave. Before I packed up, I did the one thing that still gave me comfort. I played my son's tape. His little voice sang that lullaby, sweet, clear, a little off-key like always. I closed my eyes for just a second. Then I heard something strange, a second voice. Very soft, almost like a whisper. It was trying to sing with him. I sat up straight, rewound the tape, played it again. Nothing. Just my boy. Maybe I imagined it, but from that moment on, I felt like I wasn't alone. Not even when I couldn't see anything. The forest was watching, and something in there knew my son's voice. By the third night, I was barely holding it together. Every step felt heavy, like I was dragging wet blankets around my arms and legs. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't sick. But my whole body felt slower, weaker, and I still hadn't found my way out. I'd walked in circles all day trying to get a signal, trying to see a peak, a road, anything. But the trees were too tall. The land was uneven, rising and falling like waves. And every path I followed led me right back to Black Hollow. It was like the forest was folding in on itself. That night, I tried something different. I built a fire, then set a small trap. Nothing fancy, just an old ranger trick. Some fishing line stretched between two trees with a bell attached. If anything walked through it, I'd hear it. I stayed awake as long as I could. Drank coffee from my thermos. Even chewed on beans from a cold can just to keep my jaw moving. But sometime after midnight, I slipped. Not fully asleep. Just a nod. A blink that lasted too long. And when I opened my eyes, I couldn't move. My body was frozen. Arms, legs. Even my tongue felt thick. Only my eyes worked. And they looked straight up into the trees, and there they were again. The blue eyes, above me this time, just beyond the branches. Hanging in the dark like stars. They blinked, slowly once. And then I heard a sound that stopped my heart cold. A voice. A soft, broken voice whispering from the trees. Mom. It was my son's voice. But it wasn't him. The tone was too slow. Like someone was trying to copy him, but didn't know how feelings were supposed to sound. It dragged the word out like it had to think about it. Not because I was trying to be brave. I just needed to know what I was dealing with. Whatever was out there wasn't just scaring hikers anymore. It was messing with me. And I don't scare easy. I packed light. Just a flashlight, my old army. Knife, some beef jerky, and my radio. Left Buck behind even though he whined like I'd kicked him. But I couldn't risk him bolting into the woods. Whatever this thing was, I didn't think it would go easy on a dog. I started down the trail toward the bridge. The forest was still. No wind, no birds. Even the river sounded softer than usual, like it was holding its breath. As I got closer, I saw the bones again, more this time. Dozens. All laid out in lines now, like arrows pointing toward the bridge. Some were small. Birds, rabbits, but others were bigger. I swear one looked like it came from a deer's leg. cracked clean down the middle. I followed them. The air changed the moment I stepped onto the bridge. You know that heavy, dead feeling you get before a thunderstorm? Like something big is about to drop from the sky? That's what it felt like, except there were no clouds. Just orange light slipping through the trees and that quiet, heavy air pressing down on me. Then I heard the whistle again. This time it came from behind me. I spun around, light shaking in my hand. Nothing, just woods. Then again to my left. I turned. Still nothing. The sound wasn't moving. I was, whatever it was. It was circling me. I took a few steps forward and stopped. Something was in the water. At first, I thought it was a log. Then it moved, slow, like it was crawling. I saw long fingers break the surface, too thin to be human, too long. The skin was dark and wet and pulled tight over bones. It slipped back under before I could shine the light. Fully on it, I backed off the bridge, didn't run. Just walked slow, calm. Like if I moved too fast, it would chase me. I made it back to the trail and turned around one last time. That's when I saw them. Eyes, in the trees, dozens of them, all low to the ground at first. Then slowly rising, like whatever they belonged to was standing up. I didn't sleep that night. I kept my radio close and my light on, even after the batteries started to die. The sound of the whistle came back around 2 a.m., but this time it lasted longer, and it was closer. The next morning I made a plan. I didn't tell anyone. Not the station, not even Buck. I knew they'd just pull me from duty or say I was tired. Stressed. Maybe I was, but I also knew what I'd seen. Those eyes. That thing in the water. The bones. Whatever was out there, it wanted something. And I had a feeling it would come back. So I set a trap. I spent the day dragging fresh meat from the cold locker at the station. 2 pounds of raw deer cuts we'd found in a poacher's bag last week. I left them in a tin pan right in the middle of Bone Creek Bridge. Tied it down so it wouldn't blow off. Then I cut part of the ropes under the bridge, enough so one heavy step would snap the line. Not too much. Just enough. I sat in the woods, nearby with Buck, who finally followed me but stayed low, shaking in the ferns. I kept him close. I had my knife, my flashlight, and my radio turned off. The sun dropped behind the ridge. The sky turned a deep purple. The woods felt empty. Then I heard it, that whistle closer than ever. It sounded like metal being scraped across bone, long and sharp and cold. It echoed off the trees. Buck pressed against my leg, teeth bared but silent. Then I saw something step onto the bridge. Not a man, not an animal. It was both. Tall, maybe 7 feet, covered in dark fur, matted and wet-looking. Its arms were too long, its legs bent wrong, like a dog walking upright. And its eyes, those yellow, sideways blinking. Those locked straight onto mine through the trees. It didn't sniff the meat. It didn't eat. It knew I was watching. Then it shrieked. Loud. So loud I dropped the flashlight. Blood rushed to my head, and I felt something warm drip from my nose. Buck yelped, and I grabbed him before he could run. I stood up, stepped out. The brush. Come on then, I said out loud. My voice cracked, but I meant it. I was done running. The thing turned its head, slow and strange like it didn't have a neck. Then it stepped toward me, off the bridge. I didn't wait. I whistled sharp like I used to in the army and ran. I shouted, I waved my arms, and it followed. Not fast, just steady. Like it knew I'd tire before it did. I stepped back onto the bridge and waited till it was halfway across. Then I kicked out the post. Rope snapped, wood cracked. The middle of the bridge gave way, and we both fell. I don't remember hitting the water, just the cold, and that sound like whistling underwater, like something was singing to my bones. They never found my body, only my flask. Crushed flat like something heavy had stepped on it. It was lying downstream, half buried in the mud. Buck made it back to the cabin on his own. Scratched up, limping, but alive. He wouldn't eat for 2 days. Just stared at the door, waiting. The station said I must have slipped. Said maybe I got dizzy, fell off the bridge during patrol. Accidental death, they wrote in the file. But that's not what happened. Jake, he was the one who found my journal. I'd left it tucked under my mattress just in case. I wrote down everything, the bones, the eyes, the whistle, the thing in the water. He read it. I know he did. But he didn't turn it in, can't blame him. Who'd believe it? They built a new bridge that spring. Steel cables, fresh boards, even some fancy lights installed along the railing. Hikers came, back, families, campers. The forest felt normal again, but the sound didn't stop. Some nights folks say the bridge whistles, soft and sharp like wind dragging across teeth. Animals still won't go near it. A local kid said he saw something, the water one morning. Said it stood up, then sank like it was never there, and Buck, he never went back. Lived the rest of his life sleeping by my old bed, watching the door, ears always up like he was listening for something only he could hear. I don't know what that thing was. I don't know where it came from. But I do know this. It's still out there, waiting. Mom, come here. I wanted to scream, to sit up, to run, but my body wouldn't move. All I could do was cry. Then, just as quickly as it came, it stopped. My body unlocked. I sat up gasping like I'd been underwater. The fire was out. My trap was snapped, but the bell was missing. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I found something new. My own footprints. Hundreds of them, all around my camp, going in circles, and beside them, bare, long prints. Not human, not bear, something in between. Whatever it was, it had walked around me for hours, while I slept. I packed up fast. My hands shook the whole time. Every noise made me jump. At one point, I thought I saw someone standing between the trees. A tall, pale figure. But when I blinked, it was gone. That afternoon, I tried the radio again. Emergency. This is Ranger Delia Voss. I'm in Black Hollow. I'm lost. Possibly followed. Requesting help. I kept repeating the message over and over. Finally, crackling. Static turned into a faint voice, but it wasn't dispatch. It was singing. My son's lullaby, playing through the radio. No words, just humming. Soft. Wrong. I turned the radio off, sat down, and cried into my hands. I wasn't alone out here, but whatever was with me, it wasn't human. I couldn't take another night. The sleep, paralysis, the voice, the eyes. If I let myself sleep again, I knew I wouldn't wake up. So I made a plan. I took every caffeine pill I had, 4 total, and crushed them into my canteen. Mixed it with strong coffee and a bite of chocolate. I drank the whole thing and waited for the shaking in my hands to start. I wasn't going to let that thing catch me helpless again. I built the fire high. I lit 2 more torches with extra cloth and lighter fluid. And most importantly, I unpacked the flare gun. Rangers only get 1 shot with it. It's meant for emergencies, for when you're truly alone and out of options. That night, I sat with my back to a tree, both torches lit and burning by my sides. The forest was dead silent, like it had paused to watch what would happen. And then, just before midnight, it came. It didn't walk like a man. It didn't move like anything I'd seen before. Just appeared, like it stepped out of a shadow. That wasn't there. Tall, pale, hair covering its body, but not brown or black like normal Bigfoot stories. No, this was white, like snow, glowing under the moonlight. And its eyes, those awful blue eyes, were locked on me. It didn't growl, it didn't run, it just stood there like it was waiting. Then slowly it spoke, not out loud, but inside my head, my son's voice. Why'd you leave me, Mom? I almost dropped the flare gun, because deep down I had asked myself that same question. I stood up. You're not him, I said out loud. The thing tilted its head. Come home. Its voice trembled, like it didn't understand what it was saying. Like it was trying to become something I loved. That's when I raised the flare gun and fired. Bright red light exploded across the trees. The creature didn't bleed. It didn't fall, it screamed. A long, awful whistling cry like metal scraping bone. Like it was trying to suck the air out of the forest, and then it moved, so fast it blurred. I couldn't follow it with my eyes. 1 second it was in front of me, next it was behind. I spun, grabbed a torch, and swung wildly. I hit something, felt fur, cold like ice. The creature shrieked again and vanished into the dark. I ran. Didn't care where. Branches slapped my face. My breath burned, but I kept running until the trees thinned out and the air turned colder. Somewhere near the northern cliffs, I collapsed. My legs gave out. My lungs felt full of smoke. I think I blacked out for a few seconds. When I woke up, my fingers were Frostwoe, and if you ever hear whistling while you're crossing a bridge deep in the woods, don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep walking. Story 5. I always thought the quiet places were safest. No noise meant no danger. No voices meant no bad news. But Red Ridge Cave? That place wasn't quiet because it was safe. It was quiet because something in there ate sound. It was the summer of 1952, but the wind that day felt like winter. I remember pulling my jacket tighter around me as I stepped out of the ranger truck. The other rangers had joked about ghost echoes in the canyon, how folks would yell into the cave and never hear anything back. At first, I laughed with them. I even said maybe the rocks just didn't like talking. Then came the missing hiker, and then 2 more, so now it was just me. Ranger Lewis Carter, sent to check it out. The trail leading down into Bryce Canyon was quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the off kind. The kind that makes your skin feel too tight and your ears too sharp. I couldn't even hear birds. No wind in the trees. Just the crunch of my boots on gravel. Red Ridge Cave wasn't marked on any of the new maps. You had to follow an old path past a bent pine tree, then slip between 2 sandstone pillars shaped like crooked teeth. I'd only been out there once before, years ago, helping a geologist with some rock samples. I remembered it being warm inside, oddly warm, like standing too close to a campfire, even though my breath still fogged up in the air. That should have been the first red flag. When I stepped into the cave mouth, it felt like walking into a memory. The rock walls were soft red, curving and smooth like melted candle wax. Sunlight barely touched the entrance. I clicked on my flashlight and the beam cut through the dark like a knife. The air smelled dry, like burned wood and old dust. I called out, just to test. Hello? Nothing. Not even my own echo. I swallowed, hard. That was the first time I truly felt it in my gut. Something wasn't right. I went deeper. The cave bent left, then right, sloping down like a twisting hallway. My boots scuffed the stone floor, and every sound I made felt like it got swallowed, like the cave was chewing on it. I tested it again. I clapped once. The sound vanished, gone, like it never happened. That was when I remembered something from the coal mine. Back before I became a ranger, I worked underground in Kentucky. One shift, half my crew died in a collapse. I was lucky to crawl out. My lungs were never the same after that. Every winter they feel like they're full of broken glass. I carry a chunk of coal from that day in my jacket pocket. It's smooth now. I rub it when I get nervous, and I was rubbing it hard just then. The tunnel opened up into a wide chamber. I paused. The temperature dropped all at once. Not just cooler, but wrong. Like the kind of cold that belongs in a freezer, not a desert cave. My flashlight dimmed for a second. Just a flicker, but it was enough to send a jolt through my chest. I stood still, listened. Nothing. And then, far behind me, a soft tap, like metal on rock, again tap, tap, tap like a pickaxe. I spun around, beam shaking. Is someone there? Silence. But the air smelled warmer now, not like fire, like embers. Dry heat, like something had just breathed near me. That's when I realized I hadn't taken a breath in a few seconds. I was holding it, afraid the cave would hear it, afraid something might answer back. I stayed still for a long time, not moving, not blinking, just listening. But nothing came. No more taps, no breathing, no voices. And yet, I still felt like I wasn't alone. I should have turned back, I knew it. But the memory of those missing hikers kept me walking forward. 3 people don't just vanish without a trace. I told myself maybe they slipped or got stuck somewhere. Maybe they needed help. That was enough to keep my boots moving, one slow step at a time. As I walked, the floor started to change. It was no longer smooth. It crunched. I pointed my flashlight down. Bones, tiny ones, dozens of them. Maybe birds, maybe bats. I couldn't tell. All dry, all clean. Like something had picked them apart carefully. I stepped over them, trying not to breathe. Too loudly. That's when my flashlight flickered again. I smacked it. The light stayed on, but just barely. The beam wasn't reaching far anymore. Only a few feet ahead. The walls around me began to look strange. They weren't smooth like before. They had shapes. Faces. Not full faces, just pieces. Noses melted into stone. Mouths open like they were screaming. A single carved eye on one side of the tunnel staring at nothing. They weren't made by hands, not tools. They looked like something had gnawed them out of the rock. That's when I realized I wasn't sweating anymore. The warmth I felt earlier was gone. But I wasn't cold either. I was just wrong. Like my body couldn't figure out how. It was supposed to feel in here. My breath still fogged the air, but my skin was hot. I touched the wall. It felt cool, but not normal cool. More like the chill of something dead. The deeper I went, the tighter the air felt in my chest. Each breath was work. My lungs burned like they did after the mine collapse. I coughed once, then twice, harder, trying to clear the scratch in my throat. Then I heard it again, tap, tap, tap. Only this time it wasn't behind me. It was ahead. "Hello?" I called, voice rough, still no echo. No reply, but I swear I heard something move just beyond the light. A shuffle, a soft dragging sound. I stepped forward slowly, heart pounding. I reached another chamber, bigger than the last. The ceiling curved high above like the inside of a dome. My flashlight barely lit the walls. The air was heavier here, thicker, and then I saw it. A glow. Not bright, not fire, not sunlight, just the soft, pulsing orange of dying embers. Like something inside the cave had breathed out and left behind a piece of its heat. I moved the flashlight toward it, hand shaking. There was no source. Nothing burning, just a patch of glowing rock that faded as I watched, like it knew I was looking. I backed up a step, then another, but when I turned to leave, I froze. Because now, right behind me, there was a second glow, brighter. Lower too. The ground, like 2 tiny eyes watching. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. And then they blinked. 2 soft flashes like hot coals getting poked, then gone. I stood there for a full minute trying to convince myself I imagined it. The light, the eyes. The way my breath stopped in my throat like something was pressing on my chest. But deep down, I knew something was in here. Something real. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the piece of coal. It was warm in my hand. It always was. Maybe from my own body heat, or maybe from the memories burned into it. That day in the mine still haunts me. 10 of us went in. Only 5 made it out. And of those 5, 2 took their own lives a year later. I was one of the lucky ones. That's what they told me. But I don't feel lucky. Not when I wake up coughing blood. Not when I hear their voices in my dreams, calling from under the rubble. And not now. Not standing here in the dark with something watching me from just beyond the light. That coal nugget in my hand was the only reason I kept going. It reminded me that I survived once before. Maybe I could do it again. But this cave wasn't like the mine. It wasn't collapsing. It was breathing, and whatever lived inside it had just noticed me. I kept walking. I didn't want to, but I did. Sometimes your body just moves on its own, like it knows turning back won't help. The tunnel narrowed again. My shoulders brushed against the cold stone. I ducked under a low arch, then stepped into another chamber, and stopped. This one was different. The air here felt thick, like I was breathing smoke, even though there was no fire. The ground was cracked and blackened, as if something had scorched it long ago. But the strangest part? There was no sound at all. Not even my own footsteps. Not my breath. Nothing. It was like I'd stepped into a bubble where sound didn't exist. I clapped my hands just to test it. Nothing. Not even a muffled pop. That's when fear really set in. Because now I wasn't just hearing silence. I was trapped in it, and silence like that, it feels alive. I moved the flashlight slowly across the walls. More faces, dozens, some stretched, some twisted, all with mouths open wide, like they'd been screaming forever, but nobody heard them. My hand was sweating around the coal nugget. I wanted to rub it, but I couldn't let go of the flashlight. The beam was already fading. The batteries were fine that morning, but now the light looked like a dying candle. Then I saw it again, that same orange glow. This time it wasn't flickering from the wall. It was moving. I dropped to one knee behind a low rock and shut off the flashlight. Darkness wrapped around me fast, thick, and total. My heart beat so loud in my ears it felt like it would give me away. I clamped a hand over my mouth, breathing through my nose. The glow came closer. Two soft, burning lights, eye-shaped, floating just a few feet above the ground. They didn't bounce like a person walking. They drifted, and they were looking for something, maybe me. Then I saw more of it. A shadow, tall and thin, with long arms that touched the ground. It moved slow, sniffing the air like a dog would. I couldn't hear it, not a single step, not a breath. But I felt it. It paused, turned its head, and that's when I noticed its mouth. It was open wide, full of dim red coals, not teeth, embers. Each one glowed like it had been pulled straight from a fire pit. They pulsed with light like they were breathing. It turned away and kept going, deeper into the tunnel. Once it was gone, I waited a few more minutes, then turned, my flashlight back on. The beam was so weak now it barely helped. Still, I kept going. I had to. Not because I was brave. I was terrified. But because part of me needed to know. What was it? And where were the missing people? The tunnel sloped. Downward again, steeper now. My boots slid a few times. The air got hotter, but I still saw my breath. That didn't make sense. Hot and cold at the same time. My lungs started to ache. Every step felt harder. I coughed. Blood this time. Just a little. But I didn't stop. Then I found something. A backpack. Torn open. Covered in dust like it had been there for weeks. Inside, an empty water bottle, a smashed flashlight, and a crumpled-up photo. It was a young man, smiling, arm around a woman, maybe his sister. I checked the name tag sewn inside the pack. J. Wallace, one of the missing hikers. I looked up, and that's when I noticed the walls were wet, not with water, with something sticky, black, and it moved slow like sap. When I touched it, it felt warm, almost alive. I wiped my hand off and backed away. Then the flashlight cut out. Gone, no warning, just dark. I hit it, nothing. I smacked it harder. Still dead. Now I was standing alone in pitch black, deep underground. And something nearby was breathing fire without a sound. I crouched low and waited. My ears rang in the silence, but I still heard nothing. My chest was tight. My fingers curled, tight around the coal nugget, holding it like it was the only thing keeping me real. Then, from the dark, a new sound. My name, whispered softly, like someone I knew was calling me. Lewis. I froze. That voice, I hadn't heard it in years. It was Eddie, my friend from the mine. He didn't make it out. Lewis. Come on, buddy. I shook my head. No, you're not here. But the voice came again, closer now. Help me out. Man, please, and I'm stuck. The worst part, he sounded exactly like I remembered. Same tone, same way he used to laugh. I wanted to believe it, but I knew better. I pressed my back against the wall and slid down to the floor. Something in here knew my past. Something was using it. It wasn't just feeding on sound. It was feeding on memory, on pain. And I'd brought more than enough with me. I don't know how long I sat there in the dark. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. The cave messes with time, with your head. I just remember staring into the black, holding that coal nugget tight in my hand, while the voice kept calling, "Lewis, help me, man. I can't breathe." I shook my head over and over. "No, you're not him." But it sounded just like Eddie. Same drawl, same rasp. I could hear the fear in it. Back in the mine, Eddie was trapped right next to me under a broken beam. I was bleeding, he was coughing up dirt. I tried to pull him free, but I wasn't strong enough. His last words were, "Don't forget me down here." And now here I was, down here in a cave, with his voice floating in the dark. Something about that hit me hard. I started to cry, quiet, shaking tears, not because I was scared, I already was, but because I missed him. I missed all of them. We worked together, laughed together, almost died together, and now their voices were being used like bait. I wiped my face and stood up. I didn't know where I was anymore. No flashlight, no map, just the coal in one hand and the cave in the other. But something deep inside told me I was close. I walked slowly, one hand brushing the wall, feeling the bumps and cracks. Every few steps I'd hear something soft. A shuffle, a breath, a whisper. Always just ahead or just behind. Sometimes it sounded like my dad. Sometimes it sounded like my wife. All people I'd lost. Then I smelled it again. Burning wood. No smoke. Just that smell of ashes and heat. The kind you get after a campfire dies out. I turned a corner and saw a dim orange glow far ahead. Not flickering this time. Just steady. Like a warning light, I followed it, step by slow step, and then I entered a room unlike the others. It was wide and round, almost perfect in shape. The walls were covered in handprints, black ones, like soot or charcoal. Hundreds of them. All sizes, some small like kids, and in the center was it, the creature, the thing that had been stalking me. It stood tall, almost touching the cave ceiling, thin like stretched leather. Its skin was dark and cracked like burned wood. No eyes, just sockets. But that mouth, it hung open wide, glowing with red-orange coals, flickering softly, hot enough to see, but not enough to warm the room. And the worst part? It was silent, completely still, like it was waiting for me to speak, didn't. I stood there, heart thudding. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the photo I'd found in the hiker's backpack. I held it up. "You looking for this?" I said, voice rough. Nothing. No movement. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started talking. Not loud. Just calm. Steady. I talked about the mine, about Eddie, about the people we lost, about the pain that never went away. I told it about the nightmares, the coughing blood, the guilt that lived in my chest like a second heart. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I thought it would understand. Maybe I thought it fed on that kind of thing. And maybe I just needed someone, something, to hear it. Then the creature tilted its head just a little, and I swear, for 1 second it looked sad. Not angry, not hungry, just sad, like it had been listening. And then it stepped backward, slowly, back into the shadows. The coals in its mouth dimmed, and it vanished. I stood there shaking, breathing hard, but I wasn't scared anymore. Not really, because whatever that thing was, it was alone. And maybe in some strange way it didn't want to be. But I knew it would come back. And next time, maybe it wouldn't just listen. Maybe it would take. So I did what any, man with a broken heart and a ticking clock would do. I made a plan. A trap. I didn't sleep. I don't think I even blinked. After the creature disappeared, I sat in that round room for what felt like forever, just thinking, breathing, trying to figure out what the hell to do. I knew one thing for sure. It was blind. No eyes. And it didn't make sound. Didn't even step heavy, but it could feel noise. I remembered the way it turned when I spoke. How it paused when I clapped earlier. It hunted by sound, and maybe I could use that. Back in the mines, we used to say, the cave talks back. If you drop something loud in the right spot, the echo could bounce for miles. But if you drop in the wrong spot, the walls come down, so I started walking. Careful, slow. One hand on the wall, the other holding the coal nugget. I looked for cracks, loose stone, narrow corners. Something I could use. It took a while, but I found a spot. Narrow tunnel leading into a low chamber. The ceiling sagged. One side looked ready to fall. Just a few good hits could bring it down. A trap. Now I just had to bait it. I pulled a metal camping cup from my belt pouch, the only thing I had that could make noise. Then I took a rock and scraped it along the wall, slow and steady. Creating a high-pitched screech, I stopped, waited, nothing. Then, a glow far down the tunnel, small but growing. It heard me. I backed into the chamber, sat behind a boulder, held the cup in one hand, the rock in the other. I tapped the cup softly. Ding, ding, ding. The glow got brighter, closer. My heart felt like it was going to rip out of my chest. I pressed my back tight against the rock, bit down on my sleeve to stop myself from breathing too loud. Then I saw it again. Same tall figure, same ember mouth. It stopped just before the chamber. Its head tilted like it was listening. I held my breath, then I threw the cup hard into the left wall, clang. The sound bounced, echoed once, then stopped. The creature turned, it stepped forward fast, heading straight for the noise. And when it passed the crack in the ceiling, I threw the rock straight up. Crack! The roof shifted. Dust fell. Another rock. Dropped. Then another. The ceiling groaned like a giant waking up, then it fell. The whole wall caved in. Stone slammed into the ground, smashing through the floor. A shockwave knocked me backward. Dust filled my nose and eyes. Everything shook. And then, silence, just like before. I stayed down, coughing, waiting. I didn't know if it worked. I couldn't see anything through the dust. My ribs hurt. My hands were cut, but I was alive. And I was done. I sat there in the half-dark, chest rising and falling. My flashlight was long dead. I just had the glow of the rocks and whatever weak light was sneaking through cracks above. My fingers found the coal. Nugget again. Still warm, still mine. I looked toward the rubble. If it was under there, good. If not, well, I'd tried. I closed my eyes. For once, my lungs didn't feel so tight. There was pain, sure, but also a strange kind of peace. Like maybe the thing inside that cave understood me, and maybe I understood it too. I didn't hear it coming, but I felt the warmth first. That dry, ember breath heat, just behind me. Then a hand, not clawed, just long, rested gently on my shoulder. And the last thing I saw was a soft red glow and a face in the wall slowly closing its eyes. Story 6. You ever see fog that moves like it's thinking? I have. Not the kind that drifts lazily through a valley or hugs the ground on a cold morning. I mean thick, gray fog that curls and crawls like it's alive, like it's watching you. That's what brought me back to Mount Rainier in the spring of '93. A heat wave had rolled through Washington. Odd for that time of year. Snow was melting too fast. Rangers were getting confused reports. People saying they got turned around near the timberline, hearing whispers, seeing things. Then a family vanished. No car, no tracks, nothing. Just gone. And the fog, it was back. Locals called it Devil's Breath. I called it something worse, because I'd seen it before. The last time was in 1974. My sister, Rose, disappeared into that same mist. We were both kids. She was 12. I was 14. We were hiking with our uncle when a cold wind came rushing down the slopes. The fog followed, so thick we could barely see our hands. And in that white silence, she slipped away. 1 second, she was behind me. The next, nothing. No screams, no tracks, no goodbye. They never found her. Not a shoe, not a strand of hair. I joined the Park Service years later. People said it was my way of coping. Maybe they were right. I became a ranger, worked the same forest where she vanished, patrolled the same paths, climbed the same rocks. And every winter when the wind howled just right, I thought I heard her. And now in '93, the fog was back. Thicker, louder, meaner. I had to go. The morning I packed my gear, I found her old bandana in my drawer, faded pink with little stars. I folded it tight and tucked it in my breast pocket. It didn't smell like her anymore, just dust and cedar, but I needed it. The search team had already swept the lower trails. Nothing. The missing family, 2 parents and a kid, had last been seen near Ridge Hollow, halfway up the north face. A camera crew found their minivan in the lot, windows fogged up, doors locked from the inside, like they'd never come back. Something about that didn't sit right. Families don't just disappear in parks like this. They leave signs, torn clothes, bags, panic. This was different. Quiet. Clean. Too clean. I checked my compass, clipped my radio to my belt, and stepped into the trees. It was too warm for this altitude. The snow crunched like soggy cereal under my boots. Birds were quiet. Even the squirrels were missing. That's when you know something's wrong in the woods, when the little things shut up. By noon, the fog started to creep in. It moved low, slow, like dirty smoke pouring down a chimney. I tightened my coat and kept walking. My boots left shallow. Prints in the melting snow, but after a few minutes I noticed something strange. There were other prints. Big ones, deep ones. Way ahead. They didn't look human. They were longer than a man's foot, but wider. Toes? Maybe. Hard to tell. But they didn't break twigs or crush pine cones like you'd expect. They just glided, like whatever made them was walking through the world without touching it. I bent down to take a closer look, and that's when I heard it. A soft hum. Not a growl, not wind, just a low, constant humming, like someone was whispering right next to my ear. But I couldn't hear the words. I stood up fast, heart racing. My radio crackled, but there was no voice on the other end, just static. Then a pop, then silence again. The fog thickened. I could barely see the path ahead. My compass needle spun slowly, confused. I tapped it. No use. And in that stillness, I felt something I hadn't in years. Fear, not fear of getting lost, not fear of a bear or a storm. This was different. It felt personal. Like the mountain remembered me. Like the fog knew who I was, and who I'd lost. I took one last look at the twisted footprints, gripped the bandana in my pocket, and kept walking. Back into the timberline. Back into the place where I last saw my sister. And maybe, just maybe, where I'd find out what took her. The deeper I walked, the quieter everything got. No birds, no insects. Just the sound of my boots sinking into the slushy ground and the soft hiss of the fog moving through the trees. I'd been in forests all my life, but this was different. This wasn't silence. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. I kept going uphill, following the trail toward Ridge Hollow. The snow was patchy now, melted in strange patterns like warm hands had touched the earth. Every few steps, the fog would shift, and the air around me would feel heavier, like walking through water. That's when I started seeing faces. At first, I thought it was just tree bark or my own breath making shapes, but no, they were faces. In the fog, not clear ones, just shadows that looked too much like people. One looked like my dad, another like the missing mom from the photo I'd seen at the ranger station. I stopped and rubbed my eyes. Get it together, I whispered to myself. But the fog didn't care. I kept moving one slow step at a time. My flashlight barely cut through the mist, felt like the light was being swallowed. Then came the footprints again, same as before, wide, long, heavy. This time they weren't ahead of me, they were around me, circling, no start, no end, just deep marks in the wet ground, moving in. Loops. It felt like something was watching me walk right into its trap. I reached for my compass again. The needle spun fast, then stopped, pointing south, completely wrong. I tapped it. No change. That's when I heard the crack. A single branch breaking somewhere up ahead. Not loud, but sharp, followed by a dragging sound, like something heavy, sliding across snow. I held my breath. Then another sound. Low breathing. Not mine. Deep and slow, like a big animal right behind the trees. I raised my flashlight. Nothing. Just fog. Endless, thick fog. But the breathing, still there. I didn't run. I didn't call out. I just took one step back. Then another. And then just for a second, I saw them. Eyes. 2 yellow eyes, high above the ground, shining through the fog like tiny moons. They didn't blink. They didn't move. Just stared. I couldn't breathe. Then they vanished. Gone. Like they'd never been there. The breathing stopped. The air suddenly felt cold again, colder than before. My hands were shaking, and my throat felt dry, like I hadn't had water in hours. I looked down and realized I was gripping the bandana in my pocket so tightly my knuckles were white. I needed to get to higher ground. There was a ridge nearby, one I'd climbed before. If I could reach it, I might get above the fog. Maybe get a signal on my radio. Maybe just breathe. The climb was steep and the ground was soft under the melting snow. I slipped once, caught myself on a root and kept pushing. At the top, I turned around. The forest below looked like a sea of smoke. Thick, rolling fog covered everything. The trees were just dark shapes poking out of the mist. No birds, no voices, no life. And then I saw it again, down in the fog not far from where I'd just been. Those eyes. They floated above the mist, slowly rising, turning toward the ridge, toward me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't know what I was looking at. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a cougar. It was too tall, too quiet, too wrong. And somehow it knew I was here. I dropped to the ground, crawling behind a fallen log. I stayed low, barely breathing. The fog below shifted, swirled, and the eyes were gone again. Waited. 5 minutes. 10. Maybe more. Finally, I stood up. I needed to move. Fast. But not too loud. Not enough to bring it back. I turned toward the trail and started walking again, this time slower. I didn't care about finding the family anymore. Something else was happening here. Something older than this mountain. And somehow it had waited years for someone to return, someone like me, someone who still carried the weight of what was lost here. I don't remember how long I walked after that. Time felt strange in the fog. Could have been 10 minutes or an hour. Every tree looked the same, every step sounded too loud. My flashlight flickered now and then, but I didn't dare turn it off. The higher I went, the thicker the fog got. Not just around me, but inside my head. Thoughts started to twist. I'd think I saw a trail sign, walk toward it, and find nothing. A noise behind me would make me spin around, but there'd be no one there. I started to feel like I was walking in circles, even though I knew I wasn't. And the whispering, it came back. At first, it was just a soft hum, like wind slipping through trees, but then it changed, became voices, real ones, familiar ones. I stopped walking. Emmett. I froze. That voice. I hadn't heard it in almost 20 years, but I knew it. It was my sister. Emmett, I'm cold. I turned slowly. The fog swirled, and for a split second, I saw her, or something that looked like her. She was standing between 2 pine trees wearing the same blue jacket she wore the day she vanished. Her hair was tied back. Her face was pale and still. Too still. And her eyes. They looked scared. Help me, she whispered. I took a shaky step forward. Rose? She didn't answer, just stared at me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the bandana, held it up. You dropped this, remember? Her eyes moved to it, but her face didn't change. I blinked, and she was gone. Fog. Just fog. I stood there, heart racing, bandana still in my hand. My legs felt heavy, like something was pulling me down. I sat on a rock, breathing hard. My mind was spinning. Had I really seen her? Or was the mountain playing tricks on me? Then I remembered what the old search team captain had told me years ago, after Rose disappeared. He'd said, "That fog's not just weather. It gets inside you, makes you see what you miss the most." Back then I thought he was just trying to comfort a scared kid. Now I wasn't so sure. I stood up and kept moving, but slower this time, more careful. The fog was messing with me. I had to stay focused. Then up ahead I saw a shape. Not human, not animal. Just a dark lump in the snow. I stepped closer. It was a backpack. Torn open. Bright blue with cartoon patches. A kid's next to it was a tiny shoe. No footprints, no sign of a struggle. Just placed there. Like a gift. Or a warning. I didn't touch it. I looked around, but saw nothing else. No movement. No eyes. Just fog. I turned back to the trail and stopped dead. The trees had changed. They weren't the same ones I'd passed minutes ago. These ones were twisted, leaning in toward the trail like they were listening. Their bark was dark, almost black. I didn't recognize this path. And then, voices again. This time not my sister, different. More of them. "Don't leave me. It hurts. I can't move. Where are you?" They came from every direction. Soft, crying, begging, covered my ears. "Stop." But they didn't. The fog thickened until I couldn't see my hands. My legs felt numb. The air was hot, heavy, like I was standing in someone's mouth. Then I felt a hand grab my arm, cold, thin fingers. I gasped and turned, but there was no one there. Only a branch, bent toward me like it had moved on its own. My breath came fast. I needed out. I needed to climb higher. I picked a direction, any direction, and pushed through the fog. I don't remember how long I moved like that. Branches scratched my arms. My boots slipped. But I kept going, eyes locked on the ground, not daring to look around. Finally, the fog began to thin. I broke through the trees and found a clearing. Small, silent, the kind of place deer might sleep. Collapsed onto the ground and sat there gasping. It was quiet again, but not peaceful. The fog wasn't gone. It was watching. I could feel it just behind the trees. And I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Because whatever was in that mist, it wanted something. And it wasn't just lost hikers. It wanted fear. I stayed in that clearing for a long time. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just listened. But the fog didn't make a sound now. It just hung at the tree line like it knew I needed a break and was waiting for me to get back up. The air was cold again. Real cold. My breath made little clouds and my hands started to shake. I thought about setting up camp, maybe lighting a small fire, but deep down I knew that would be a mistake. Fire meant light. Light meant attention. And whatever was in that fog, it was drawn to both, so I just sat there, watching, thinking. And I realized something. It wasn't lost. The thing in the fog. It knew the mountain. It owned it. I was the one who didn't belong here. Eventually I stood up. Had to move. Sitting too long out here was like waiting to die. I headed west, hoping to loop back toward the search grid. Maybe I'd find some sign of the family. Maybe I'd find nothing. But after 10 minutes of walking, I noticed something strange. The trees. They were the same ones from before. That same crooked pine with the broken branch. The same split rock with moss shaped like a smile. I'd been walking in a circle, but I hadn't turned once. I spun around, tried to calm myself. All right. Breathe. Then came the sound again. Footsteps. Not heavy, not soft, just steady. Coming from the fog behind me, I turned slowly, flashlight raised. The beam cut through the fog, just a little. And then I saw them. 2 glowing eyes. Still. Watching. No face. No body. Just eyes floating in the mist like tiny lamps. I didn't blink, didn't move. They were too far apart for any normal animal. too high off the ground. They blinked once, slow, and then vanished. Gone. I should have run. I should have panicked, but I didn't. Instead, I got angry. I was tired of being hunted, tired of being watched. I gripped my knife, the one I'd had for years. Just a simple survival blade, but it felt good in my hand. Solid. Real. "Come on," I whispered. "Show yourself." Nothing. Only fog. I turned and kept walking. More fog rolled in, heavier now. It wrapped around my legs, clung to my jacket, made it hard to breathe. I could feel sweat on my neck even though the air was cold. Then the illusion started again. A woman screaming, a child crying, a man calling my name, my own voice echoing from behind a tree. "Emmett, help me." Each voice made my chest tighten. Like I couldn't get air. I knew they weren't real. I knew, but they sounded real. They felt real. And then, the worst one. "Emmett," my sister said, "I didn't want to die here." I stopped dead. Her voice came from ahead, soft, sad. "Waited for you." I raised my flashlight. The fog parted slightly, and there she was again. Same jacket, same pale face. But this time, she was sitting on the ground, arms wrapped around her knees, tears in her eyes. "Why didn't you come back for me?" I took a step forward. "Rose." I looked, I searched for weeks. She looked up and her voice changed. Lower, cold. "You left me." I stepped back. The fog behind her twisted, and a tall shape rose out of it. It was massive, shoulders wider than a doorway, covered in moss and something that looked like fur but moved like it was breathing. The eyes, those same glowing eyes, stared at me from the middle of its head. The girl who looked like my sister stood up. Her smile was too wide. "You can stay now," she said. "With me." I gripped the bandana in my pocket, tighter than ever. This wasn't Rose. This was it. The thing in the fog. It didn't just scare you. It used you. Showed you the people you missed, the moments you regretted, the fears you never said out loud, and it wanted me to break, to give in. I shook. My head, "No." She stopped smiling. The tall figure took one step forward, and every tree nearby groaned under the weight of its sound. I backed away, heart pounding, every part of me screaming to run. But I didn't. Not yet, because something told me I'd be seeing her again very soon. I didn't sleep that night. I found a small rock ledge just above the clearing and sat with my back against it, knife in one hand, flashlight in the other. I didn't light a fire. I didn't eat. I just waited. The fog never left. It moved like it was alive, curling around the trees, sliding up the rocks. It never touched me, but it got close, like it was sniffing me out, testing me. I kept my eyes open the whole time. Every now and then I'd see those eyes again. Far off, floating, watching, never closer, never farther, just waiting. At some point I heard footsteps, but not walking ones, dragging, like someone pulling, a heavy bag behind them. I didn't move, just listened. It passed right behind the trees, no growl, no scream, just the sound of something tired, or pretending to be tired. Then silence. That was worse. When the morning light came, if you could even call it light, I stood up, stretched my legs, and kept moving. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to keep going, keep ahead of it. I followed what looked like a dry stream bed. The fog thinned out a little near the rocks, just enough for me to see maybe 20 feet ahead. That's when I found it. A scarf. Bright. It tied around a branch. It wasn't weathered. It wasn't dirty. It looked fresh, like someone had just left it there. And right below it on the ground was a shoe print. Small, child size. The family. The missing kid. They'd been here. I looked around for other signs, food wrappers, a glove, anything, but found nothing, just the scarf and something else. A voice, a little boy's voice. "Dad, are you coming?" It came from down the stream bed. Soft, scared. I froze. Then I heard the dad. "Don't move. I'm right here." The two voices echoed, overlapping, like a broken tape. I took a slow step forward. "Hello?" I called out. The voices stopped. Then the fog rushed in, fast, like a wave crashing down. I couldn't see anything. I turned to backtrack, but the way was gone. No rocks, no trees, just white. And then I saw her again. Rose closer this time. She wasn't a little girl now. She looked older. Maybe the age she'd be if she'd lived. But her eyes were the same. She stepped toward me. "It's okay now," she said. "You don't have to feel guilty anymore." I couldn't speak. "Stay with me," she whispered. "You don't have to go back. No one's waiting." Then I felt it behind me. The air got heavy, thick. Something was there, the creature. I could feel it breathing. Smell the damp moss and wet fur. My fingers clenched around the bandana in my pocket, still warm from my hand. Still mine. Rose. This version of her reached out. "Please," she said, "don't leave me again." And for a second, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to stop running, stop searching, just rest. But then I remembered something. The real Rose. My Rose. Never begged. She was strong, brave. She would have fought this thing. It was lying. It didn't just feed on fear, it fed on grief. That's when I knew what I had to do. With shaking hands, I pulled out the bandana. I held it up. The girl's face changed, just a little. Her smile twitched. I struck a match. The flame flickered in the thick air. "No," she said, her voice cracking. I touched the flame to the corner of the bandana. It caught fast, bright orange against the fog. "No," she screamed. But now the voice was deeper. Wrong. The fog shivered. The ground trembled. I threw the burning bandana into the stream bed. The fire flickered out, but the fog split open like glass breaking. I turned, and there it was. The creature, 7 feet tall, covered in dripping moss and tangled fur. Its arms hung long, fingers almost brushing the ground. Its face was hidden, but those glowing yellow eyes burned through the mist. It roared, loud but not like an animal, like wind in a tunnel, like all the voices I'd heard mixed together. I pulled out my knife. Not to fight. I knew I couldn't. Win but to survive. I slashed once just to make space and ran. Ran like hell through the trees, through the rocks. The fog chased me like smoke from a fire. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Not even once. I don't know how far I ran. The trail disappeared somewhere behind me. My legs felt numb and my chest burned. But I didn't stop until I saw a wooden sign through the trees. Faded, cracked, but real. Trailhead, 2.3 miles. Somehow I'd made it back near the edge of the grid, out of the fog's reach. I slowed down, hands on my knees, breathing like I'd just outrun a wildfire. My clothes were soaked in sweat, my boots caked in mud. But I was alive. The fog didn't follow. It hovered back by the tree line, swirling. Slow, almost like it was watching me leave. Like it had let me go. I stared at it, waiting to see those yellow eyes again. But they never came. It was quiet now. No voices, no footsteps, just wind. The kind of silence that feels too clean, like something was wiped away. I made it down to the ranger station by late afternoon. A search crew was prepping for another sweep. When they saw me, they rushed over, asking questions. I didn't say much, just told them where I'd been. Gave them the scarf. Described the missing backpack and shoe. I didn't mention the creature or the fog or my sister. They wouldn't believe me anyway. They never found the family. Not a single body, not even a bone. Their van was towed. The case filed away with the others, and life moved on, but not for me. That fog, whatever it was, it didn't just haunt the woods. It stayed in my mind. Weeks passed, then months. I left the Park Service and moved to a quieter town. Thought maybe I could let it all go. I was wrong, because every winter when the cold wind starts rolling down from the mountains, that fog comes back. I see it in the distance, curling along. The tree line's just outside town, and sometimes when the snow is fresh and the night is quiet, I hear her voice. Emmett, Soft. Just a whisper. And for a second, I want to follow it. But I never do. I lock my doors, light a fire, sit close to the window with the lights off and watch the hills. Because I know it's still out there, waiting, and it remembers me.